July 12th, 2021 to order. Mr. Bigham, roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott,
Present.
Mr. Bratton,
Present.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Present.
Mr. Rod Johnson, and Mrs. Sherman.
Present.
Three, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 4, approval of the agenda. We have one item to delete. If you go to page 3, at the top of your page, you'll see 19. That's 9B1A19 needs to be deleted. And then we have the addendum that you have sitting at your table to be approved as well. Anybody see anything else in the agenda that needs to be corrected?
I did not. I'm good.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mr. Sherman. Your roll call.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton.
Yes. Item number 5 is approve the minutes from the June 14th, 2021 regular meeting. Anybody see anything there?
I did not.
I'll make this motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Bratton, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Item number 6, public participation.
Mark, do you have any other comments besides with the presentation?
That's all I have. That's all I
Okay.
have. Okay, we'll go to BCEA topic, Mr. Grove.
I just wanted to comment on something that I don't even know if anyone in here is certainly aware of. During the year, we as a union discussed a rollover. I'm the president of the local and the association. During this conversation, I'm gonna stand here so I can read this. Two administrators. We had several administrative meetings, most recently in regards to the rollover for the local. We were asked to accept. During this meeting, we discussed the discrepancy between teachers' pay and administrative pay in the district. And there's a big discrepancy between the two. Mostly when we compare ourselves to other schools within the state of Ohio that are similar to us and statewide. So I had asked that we push to close that gap between the teachers and the administrators, and was assured that we would. During the meeting, I was given assurance by two administrators that they understood and will keep that into consideration when administration raises came up in the near future. Otherwise, we as the BCEA were not willing to agree to the rollover. This was not in writing, but rather a gentleman's agreement. Here's the picture of where we currently are. The average administrator salary for our district before the current raise is $98,038. The ODE similar districts that are comparable to us in size or makeup is $84,562 versus the statewide average. Now you're talking your really big schools and your really, really small schools was $85,458. Our admin is paid $13,000 more on average. This doesn't account for those administrators who are paid at a much higher rate or ones that we have that work through a different ESC. As the BCEA president, I feel that I may have been taken advantage of. As a local, we may not have accepted a rollover if we knew that admin would receive a raise and others would be given incentives in the form of benefits, which equals more take-home pay and raises to my understanding. I feel it's my obligation to let you know of this, and as we will probably not roll over again. This is a concern that we seem to be taken. I don't mind that administrators are paid more than teachers, that's understandable. But we're here, they're here, and it goes here faster than here. In our conversations and in meetings, I've been told that we don't have much and we can only give so much to the teachers in the incentive of pay. And it appears that may or may not be true based on some of the things that are happening within the district now. I just wanted to speak for the local and make you aware of that if you weren't already.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Next up, I think we have for public participation, the athletic department and boosters update. I don't know, Mr. Little, Mr. Williams,
Together.
or together.
I'll go first. You go first. Either way is cool.
Condensed version from past versions. I'll talk to parameters. The first thing I'd like to do is thank you all as a board and as a superintendent. In lots of conversations early in the year, I don't have to tell you how difficult the year was for everybody, whether it's our teaching staff, our coaches, our athletes, but working with other athletic directors in Central Ohio and across the state, we seem to stay ahead of the curve and continue to plug on. I had friends that worked at other schools that weren't participating in the fall when the fall season started. Even into the winter, basketball teams weren't permitted to scrimmage 5-on-5 the entire season, literally the entire season. Coaches weren't allowed inside the out-of-bounds line during basketball practices, all because of COVID protocols. And as difficult as it was for our coaches and our athletes, and I told lots of our coaches, as you know, I used to coach, I'm glad I didn't have to go through that. To wear a mask the entire time and sanitize and not high five and all the things that the governor, the CDC and whatnot asked of us. You guys stayed the course, and because of that, historically we have one of our best school years athletically, maybe ever. So I think you certainly deserve your share of the credit for that. And I guess I would publicly congratulate my coaches and our athletes for that as well. Overcome all that. I know everyone else was going through it as well, but it's many things that you have to deal with as a coach, as an athlete in a normal year. Hopefully 21-22 is going to be normal or close to normal. I can't congratulate them enough for all the work they did. So, and this school year, again, I won't insult you by going through every item on this list, but I did want to touch base on a few things. But going back, when I got here in the fall of 2006, so I was fortunate enough to watch our softball team in the spring of 2006, right about when I got offered the job here. A friend of mine from the school I used to work at, we went up and watched the national, the infamous 2 in the morning finish and turn around the next day and then play a state championship. Got to see a state championship when I was at the school before, and even in my years as an athlete in high school. I never got to be a part of that, whether it was even as a fan of our teams. So that was a neat thing. Got here in 06 and I'm like, I'm going to play for state championship. We have to go see it. I've been fortunate enough to see a couple more softball, baseball, and then we get to this year and we do some things in the fall. Again, with all the COVID stuff to go through and make the Final Four in football was just astronomical. It was one of the highlights for me as an athletic director to watch our kids get to that pinnacle and see our community support, even though it had to be limited by the rules. It speaks so much to the culture here, I think. As simple as it sounds, for me, just outsider looking in, having served as a teacher and as an assistant principal at different levels, when your athletic teams are successful, it just seems like things just seem to go a little bit easier. The culture in the building is better, everybody seems happier and lucky and ready to do things. So to start the year that way, in the fall, we win boys cross country, boys soccer, boys golf, football, girls tennis. We run all of those things in the league in the fall. What a great start under the circumstances we were in. So it just got things off and we just kind of rode that momentum, I guess. And you know, the top thing I put on there, that was one of the things too. Once I got here and got to see things and we've been successful. I mean, the whole time through, successful in this or successful in that. But one of the things we hadn't done since '93 was win the all sports championship. And then ironically, and probably poetically correct, the league named that award after Marlowe Mills this year, in the middle of the year. So it was good for us to win it, the year that Marlowe unfortunately passed. That was great. I was actually at Marlowe and Molly's house last week, and I'm actually going there tomorrow too, to help go through all the things that Marlowe has collected over his tenure. So we're helping Bonnie get through that and try to figure out what to keep and what goes where. But just kind of not only just speaks to the success we had across the board, but it just felt good that it was named after Marlowe. Just the timing of it with his passing for us to win that award, I think was a special thing for us too. Baseball then finishing up the year with a heartbreaker in 10 innings, losing 2-1. Again, I can remember back in 2013, we got beat in the state championship in baseball. And having been in the dugout, you have to go down early in the dugout to get a lot of awards, and we're down in the dugout there, like, we're gonna win this, and then it falls apart. And then the following year, get to go down in the dugout, of course, going by one rule that year, won our own state title. But just having that feeling again, Nate and I are down in the dugout there in the 5th inning up at Canal Park, and you get down there and it's 1-1, like, hey, this thing's gonna be over soon, and then it goes 5 innings down that dugout for an hour and a half, and just to see the raw emotion of kids, both highs and lows on our coaches, it's just something that not everybody gets to experience. So congratulations to them as well. Softball, as you probably know, is a Division II district runner-up. In baseball and softball and football, all three of those sports bring a massive amount of returning letter winners and starters on all of those teams. So expectations there for all three of those are extremely high. We had 4 first-team All-Iowans, Hobie Scarberry, Rick Farrell in football, Lexi Paulson and Josh Moore, softball and baseball. So those guys, when your first-team All-Iowa, get added to this wall in the front hallway here in the middle school. And then Silas Stiegel and Nick Durr state qualifiers in their individual sports as well. Just a few things on the back. We talk about this a little bit in our athletic booster meetings, and Mark may touch base on this. And I got this question a lot throughout the year. It's a total guesstimate, if you will. It looked like gate receipts were down about 25,000 because of the limited restriction. We went to a $5 flat rate versus a $6, $4 when we decided that. So that's about where we were at. That doesn't take into account maybe tournament contests that we didn't host that we could have made a little revenue there. So I would say it's probably a $28,000 to $30,000 hit with all of the things that we're going through in the limited attendance at games. One of the things personally that I've taken pride in this job is trying to keep the athletic department in the black. My streak is broken this year, but I'm blaming
Through no fault of your
I'm
own.
blaming COVID. So we'll recover this year and get back to solid state. So we decided to stay with online ticketing for this coming school year. The majority of our league will be doing the same thing. Just to maybe ease any anxiety there. So as you're probably aware, if you bought a ticket this year, if you paid, next year it's $6. So across our league, it's $6 for high school events, period. There's no student rate, so it's just $6. You would still pay that additional $47, $50 or so on top of that. But to alleviate some of that, what we'll offer is a digital pass. So say you're paying $7.50 a game and you're going to 10 games, you're going to spend $75. Well, I'll sell you a digital pass that can get you into any 10 high school events you want. We may set that price at $60. So where you're not paying the fee. You buy the pass, it gets you into any 10 games you want to go to, but you don't have to pay that additional processing fee on top. We'll also put an enormous discount on a student pass to get our students to games. Something $40 for the year and just gets them in whenever they want to come in. So we're working through some of those things. It certainly is more convenient from handling cash. There's no cash errors. It's far more accountable. I think Travis's office probably is glad just not having cash or having volunteers handling so much cash. Currently, from a vacancy standpoint, we need a varsity swimming coach and a varsity softball coach to just step down this spring. So working on filling those. As you're aware, we're putting up lights at the stadium eventually, and a scoreboard at the stadium, which eventually will come out this fall as well. That facility in itself, again, just from the time I've been here, to watch it grow and develop to one of the premier facilities in Central Ohio has been phenomenal. think when we all get out there and see the lights on, it's probably gonna be dumbfounding how much better it is. If you've been out there on Friday night, you know what it looks like. It's really, really dim, so we're looking forward to that. Looking forward to the tennis courts. I can remember being out in front of this building in the parking lot where they used to be, and we used to have pumps and swells in the tennis courts and still practice and play matches. So I know they're all excited for that. We are putting a huddle camera at the stadium, which is identical to the one in the gym. That will allow us to live stream events out there as well.
Will it have audio?
Hopefully. We're supposed to have audio now in the gym too.
Okay.
And we're trying to decide, and really, I could talk with Mr. Hahn with feedback from you all, how we're gonna handle live streaming this year. If we wanna just continue to provide all of those events as a free service, if we wanna try to monetize that in some way. I'm not overly concerned with losing attendance because they wanna stay at home and watch it. It's just not the same. Your fans that come to games are most likely, I mean, maybe on a rainy night, you stay home and not go to the stadium, but we'll see. We're hoping to get that installed later this month, early August, and it'll be set and ready to go. The last thing is we're gonna put something called a touch wall system outside of the cafeteria at the middle school where the Hall of Fame is. If you could picture that Hall of Fame wall, there's a board of pictures, then there's a big gap in the middle, and then there's a board of pictures. And it was put up that way intentionally, with plans of eventually putting one of these systems in the middle. And it's really, it's like a clever touch. It's a touch screen, but it's got a heavy screen on it, so it's meant to be played with. And it can do a million different things. One of the things that we run into, like many schools, even this year, if you see we won 10 league championships, that's 10 trophies. All of our trophy cases are full. And so I'm running into, every time we win a trophy of any kind, where I'll put it. I mean, we literally have no trophy case space. So there's a million different ways to do it, but this would allow us to do somewhat of a virtual trophy case where you can put, you may have a picture of the trophy, a picture of the team with names on the team, so you could go in and look at 2020-21 championships. You click on that, you can see the trophy, you can see the team, you can see maybe information about the team. And it takes some work, and it's gonna take some work in our office to upload all that stuff and get those things ready. But it can be used academically, so Mr. Conrad could put his valedictorian all on there. And it's also accessible on the web, so you don't have to be actually at the screen. So if somebody in Florida wants to go and look at our Hall of Fame and see Travis Bigham's profile, they could go to our website and they would see what's on the screen. So you don't have to physically be there, but you can still see everything that's on there. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a great addition for us. It also has the capability of doing a virtual museum that Mr. Mills talked about for years and years and years. So his daughter wants to kind of take on that project. Mr. Hahn knows a little bit about that, but this system, if they wanted it somewhere in-house or on the web, could easily integrate that in. She wants to do some of the taking pictures and making it digital. We could certainly help them with that as well. So hopefully it's up in August. It's going to take us, again, some time to start putting everything in, but it's going to be a great addition out there. We'll be able to use it in a million different ways. So that's my update. That's as concise as I can be.
That was a good one.
Good.
Lots of good news, thank you.
Thanks, Jed. Thanks, Jed.
Mark?
Mr. Hahn, Mr. Bigham, members of the board, thank you for allowing me to come and speak for a couple minutes tonight about one of my favorite topics. Obviously, COVID was our #1 issue that we dealt with like everybody else last year. We basically lost about a year's worth of stuff. We lost all of our spring concessions from 20, lost the booster drive last year. We had we had some fall concessions, but obviously not to the level of what we're accustomed to, and the winter was the same. By my estimates, we lost about $44,000 in revenue for the year. That goes all the way back to the spring of 20. Out of that, my guess would be like about $27,500 in profit. And so what I'm happy to report is that, things got back on track in the spring this year. Our track concessions in the spring were actually better than what they were 2 years ago. And we had a great night at the races for all of you who were there to have fun with that. And we're hoping that things will get back to normal this fall. At least that's what we're anticipating. We were able to get some things done despite everything else being such a mess last year. We bought some parts of uniforms for the football team. We bought some equipment for the golf team that's really meant to help them be able to practice indoors and that kind of thing when necessary. We used $10,000 of our share of the Pepsi money, and we gave that to Wade to buy new equipment for our weight room. We figured that was a good use of that Pepsi money, since it's meant to be something that is, geared towards helping as many kids as possible in the district. And then now coming up ahead for this year, we're going along with the board in terms of splitting the costs for new mats for the wrestling team, the meat mats. I did want to talk a minute about the press box project. First of all, thanks for acting so quickly to name the new project for Marlowe. It's been one thing that I wish people could see sometimes in my job as treasurer, and it was not just here, but it was with the entry project as well, is the notes I get whenever we're involved in one of these projects. And since Marlowe's passing, we've gotten over $14,000 in donations. It's been stunning, and I mean, donations from people all across the country. It's amounted to about 115 families so far that have donated money, and it just shows what kind of person Marlowe was and what he meant to people. I actually brought along a couple of the notes I've received. I wanted just to share those quickly with the board, just so that you all can get an idea of the kind of thing I received in the mail. This is one. Mr. Mills was important to me during my time in high school and afterwards. Marlowe was a super great person to many people and will be greatly missed by many. I had a lot of respect and admiration for Marlowe and what he did for the community, schools, and sports. He always had the gym open and facilitated additional practice time and alumni activities. I played basketball for BC in 1984-85 and ran cross country and track. I think, anyway, he says Marlowe was a big part of that, of his success, and so many others. So we look forward to working with you all on the project to replace the press box, and that's really, I think this thing is going to be a nice step, is what Chad was talking about, the next step to really complete the work that's happened on in the football field since over the last number of years, and that's all I have.
Proceed on.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for all your effort.
sure.
Yep, thank you, Mark.
On to number 7, treasurer's recommendations and reports.
Okay, item A is to approve the June financial statements. Total expense $13,295,170.73, including just over $8.1 million in SCOIC. All of the financial reporting and documentation for this meeting is contained in item B tonight, so I don't really have a lot for item A unless the board has any specific questions.
Any questions on the June financials? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Sherman, seconded by Mrs. Abbott. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Item B is approve the fiscal 21 financial summary report, beginning on page 27 of the electronic copy. And this is really just, and it's probably too much detail within the report, but just, for transparency purposes and just to make sure that we're getting the information out there, and hopefully a concise and succinct way, but also to try to provide some of the information, some of the questions that I get throughout the year that are kind of come through quite a bit, to make sure that we're getting the information out. Again, as simply as can be put, just looking at our general fund revenues compared to expenditures, we had an operating surplus of a little over, and it's a little blurry up there, but a little over $1 million. We've talked about this throughout the year, how it changed from the November forecast for obvious reasons, being able to recoup some of the cuts and stay within our budget to basically get us to the second green cell there. Carryover is at June 30th. Of $4.87 million. And really there's two benchmarks that most fiscal officers, CFOs look at. ODE has some guidance for this too. One is, what is that compared to your percentage of your total budget? The most goals and benchmarks were at 20%. We're finally a little over that, 22.6. And another benchmark is if money just stopped coming in, how many days could you operate? How many true days cash do you have as compared to how much it costs per day to run the school district? And again, kind of using some of those formulas, we're at about 83. The benchmark's usually around 60 to 70 days, that 2.5 month period. So that's the summary. I just for graphs and charts and things by department. Of course, we try to obviously as much into the instruction, the blue pie there as possible. Just under 57% of our budget back into the classroom. Certainly, that's an important thing to track. The next 2 pages I won't go through. I just again for accountability purposes. How do the final numbers compare to the original forecast in the yellow? We went through this pretty much each month, but revenues were about 3.54% above what we had originally projected. And then the expenditures, again, happy to report that we were able to stay in the budget with this uncertain year, 2.46% under what the original budget was. Real quickly, this kind of comes to a culmination of the long biennial budget process at the Ohio State Legislature. We have gotten through House Bill 110 finally with many different forms. Again, the original form was going back to FY19 funding levels. The House came up with a budget that was in line with the Fair School Funding Plan, promoted by Cut Patterson. The Senate completely threw that out, but gave us more money in the next 2 years than what the House would have. But what it ultimately came down to was the final House Bill 110 re-implemented kind of the original House version of the Fair School Funding Plan. So it's kind of good news, but there's a caveat that I'm a little worried about. So again, these first 2 years, we've talked about being a little lower than the Senate, but still higher than what we had forecasted based on the original governor's projection. But the original the Fair School Funding Plan called for a 6-year phase-in. And that plan fully phased in would have put us around $7.6 million in funding as a true school funding formula. Unfortunately, this version of the House bill only sets forth a 2-year phase-in. So after this biennial budget, it's anybody's guess. Are they going to continue with the original phase-in, or are we going to go back to square one? So again, some good news, bad news, like most state budgets are. But I just kind of wanted to put a bow on that. And
So they only really give you clarity for 2 years.
yes, we were hoping that would be signed into law, the Cut Patterson version, but I can see it's hard to completely put into law a 6-year phase-in like that. But we're kind of hoping against hope. The last 2 pages, again, I get a lot of questions about how many students do you have coming in open enrollment, how many are going out, what was the impact on COVID with community school enrollment. Our open enrollment in and out has stayed really pretty steady. We've dropped a little bit, last year, obviously for obvious reasons. Is nobody's surprise. We did go from 31 students to 50 attending community schools. Obviously, that's a big expense that we were anticipating. We hope that number will drop. That's actually the lowest we were at. This is the end of the year number. We were up over 60 at one point during the year, so we did have some of those students either return or move to another district. So again, that's just information to kind of summarize some questions I get. And then again, finally, just for transparency, the public, our community constituents were nice enough and generous enough to pass a permanent improvement levy. So certainly we're going to continue to track those expenditures, summarize them basically to ensure that we're aligned with our original, what we had said in the campaign. So again, that's a summary just for this fiscal year for our permanent improvement fund. Again, I know that was a lot, but just to kind of wrap up the fiscal year, we'll post this to our website and make sure that it's available for public inspection as well. Any questions on the final fiscal 21 financial summary report?
I'll make this motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Bratton, seconded by Mr. Abbott. And a roll call.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Item C is to approve the following fund-to-fund transfers effective on June 30th. As we talked about earlier, general fund to food service, 25,000. General fund to athletics, as Mr. Little alluded to, 10,000. I will say, and for obvious reasons, these were necessary even with the federal government stepping through with the free lunch program, the amount of missed days and the hybrid schedule, and our numbers were just still down, mostly from the beginning of the year. By law, these funds are not allowed to end in a negative, but these amounts to transfer are much, much less than what we had originally projected, and these two departments did phenomenal considering the environment and the atmosphere they have had to operate in this year. So again, we are having to cover a small deficit, but certainly could have been much more.
Can I get a motion, or was there any questions on it?
I'll make a motion.
Make a second, please.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Jimmy Johnson, second by Mr. Abbott. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman? Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Item D, approve the capital expenditure list to be funded from the construction interest earnings. Again, this is obviously non-general fund, non-permanent improvement fund, strictly interest earned on the project that we weren't forced to put back into the project to this point. Most of these things we've talked about, again, not to go through every line, but the overriding philosophy that Mr. Hahn and myself and the administration has had is, basically three areas. One area to basically fill in the gaps and put things into the building that we didn't necessarily have in the original project, such as some additional kitchen shelving, tables for outdoor learning area. Again, I won't go through all these, but again, just to kind of wrap up that project. Maintenance, there was just no budget to have any equipment out at the new building, obviously with the mowers and the plows and some of those things we just had to have out there. So that kind of fell into that area. Certainly technology to try to alleviate some of the pressure on our PI and our general fund, especially as we're trying to move into this one-to-one environment. And then things that, quite frankly, weren't going to be able to do at any other time, like the stadium lighting and some other things there that were desperately needed. So the main reason to have this on tonight wasn't necessarily that all these things need approved. Everything here with the PO number has already kind of been approved and discussed. It was to give the board, if you had additional things, you can see we do have some cushion, some funds remaining here that still need allocated. If the board had anything specific that they would like to see, or if you would just prefer to kind of have that cushion as we kind of work through the next couple of months. Perhaps with some unforeseen thing. Modular removal is still so far up in the air right now. It's tough to find time to really tackle that project right now, but I just wanted to open up to the board.
Quick question on that. I know you were asking the departments, are we required to spend it or have it encumbered by?
If you can show that there's a signed contract, encumbrance, we can get away, not get away, that's not the right terms. We can comply with the requirements.
What's the deadline?
It's roughly October 28th.
Me personally, I think it'd be a good idea to have some cushion.
Yeah.
Especially going into school year, we don't know what's going to happen.
And just, again, this stuff is so fluid. The line 31 is already more than what the new stage, not saying it's not needed, but some of these other things are just, it's pretty fluid as we're just trying to get quotes and get things ready for next school year. But yeah, I mean, we can certainly work with the cushion and keep the board apprised here in August and September and kind of work from there if you want.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, especially given, I know the lighting project is
Right.
run into the
Yeah.
ground, not being stabilize it, right? So
Right.
I'd rather.
I think the big thing to look at is, Travis kind of touched on this, is that we're trying to offset some costs with big ticket items that typically come out of the general fund or a permanent improvement fund. Each spring, we look at that wish list, and if you look at like the high school interactive flat panels on line 25, rather than piecing that together over a 4-year period and doing a few classrooms at a time like we've done in middle school, we're able to finish the entire middle school classrooms and put the 75-inch interactive flat panels in and do that at the high school as well. But that's not coming out of the general fund. And then teacher laptop replacements, they're on about a 4 or 5 year cycle. That's a big ticket item too, typically from PI or general fund. So there's some things in there that, you know, it'll help us down the road, and, you know, things that certainly, will be used. I mean, we're with these smart boards that are still in the classrooms, when a bulb goes out, you're still, the amount of maintenance and the cost of the bulbs. Some of these bulbs are $400 when they go out, so these interactive flat panels will be a nice upgrade for the staff in the classroom. And save some money with technology maintenance, things like that.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion to approve the capital expenditures?
Move.
Second. Motion made by Mrs. Sherman, second by Mr. Johnson. Can I have the roll call, please?
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
And finally, we have approve a full-service vending agreement with Pepsi-Cola Bottling Company for a period of 5 years, commencing August 1st, 2021, and expiring July 31st, 2026. This is pretty much in line with the past vending. It's an exclusive rights for both vending and concession sales for all Pepsi-Cola products. Basically, in two ways of the benefits. One is a 20% commission that we get on the vending and the concession sales. And the other one is, which I wasn't really anticipating this time, is a 5-year corporate support for the district that Mr. Williams had alluded to that we have in the past. It's public money, so we can't divert it directly to the booster groups, but we can get input from them on helping them offset some of their expenditures, both music boosters and athletic boosters. $7,500 over a 5-year period. $37,500 that we will continue to allocate evenly between those two groups. Also 50 cases of 12-ounce Pepsi can products. We were pretty fortunate. We were pretty far short of our quota with this last 5-year contract for obvious reasons, but they've agreed to not penalize us and roll that in as long as we, of course, sign this contract tonight. But all in all, Sean met with them as well. I thought it was a good contract moving forward.
When have we ever did that out with Coke? I mean,
We did. I don't know if Chad still can speak to that as well. It's just
Coke is almost out of the school sponsorship business. I know at one point they had Ohio State business. And so we had bid it out in some other schools at the same time. We're trying it. And like some of them, Coke just said no thanks. Didn't even bid. So my understanding is they're in very few high schools anymore.
and we might
We were a
want.
little shocked that they still agreed to.
Well, anyway, we had no leverage this time, so it was kind of like maybe let's get through another one, and then certainly 5 years is a while, but we can look at our options at that point. But
Yeah, I mean, just from my perspective, I'm shocked at that number, because given what we sold in Pepsi last year.
Yeah.
Or hardly anything, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah. They're expecting it to pick back up.
Well, I hope we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, now, to be fair, we also pay a lot for
Right.
Pepsi.
Yeah,
But
they're-
that kickback's important.
Yeah, they're locked in at their prices, but it's it's like any other give and take. So
any other questions?
Matt, you remember too, just one caveat, they used to do scoreboards.
Yeah.
So the scoreboard that's at the stadium currently, and the two in the high school gym were part of the previous Pepsi contract. And now they're out of that as well. That used to be a normal part of a contract where they always replace scoreboards, and they no longer do that.
Okay. Can I get a motion, please? to approve full service agreement?
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Sherman, second by Mr. Abbott. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Item
Thank you.
number 8, old business. It may approve the following policies for second reading, as presented 1 through 5. Any questions on those policies?
I'll make the motion.
I'll make the second on this. Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mr. Bratton. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Yes.
and Mrs. Sherman.
Yes.
Item 9, Mr. Collins, Superintendent, recommendations and reports.
All right, good evening. Just a few things to go over here. I'll try to zip through these. This is preliminary state testing data. Again, in Ohio, every spring, except for the spring of 2020 due to COVID, we are required to administer state assessments to our students in grades 3 through 12, starting with the third grade reading guarantee in the fall of each school year. This is preliminary data because the data is still being sorted through by ODE. We still have a couple districts that haven't shared their data yet. So, I did give you handouts as well. But this data is in front of you here. And just a couple things maybe a couple key points. We met or exceeded the state averages in all 20 areas. That's not that uncommon. We typically do that. But this year, the gaps between our district and the state averages were significant at this time. Now, again, these numbers can still fluctuate, but it would be very minor if it changes at all. Bloom Carroll had 10 out of the 20 highest scores in the county. I know the school districts in the county are very different, yet you got to look at something, and we try to look at our county, we try to look at Central Ohio, and then obviously the state averages as well. But 10 out of the 20 highest areas is certainly something to be proud about at this time. That could change as a few other districts still need to report their data. I guess a few areas to kind of be aware of. In geometry, we did not, we met the state average, we did not exceed it. In all other areas, we did exceed it quite a bit. Some highlights, the third grade reading guarantee. Obviously, we are not able to hold students back as a result of not scoring the required score on the third grade reading guarantee due to the pandemic and the different ways the school's been operating. But I wanted to point out that we did, at this point, we have the highest score at 68% proficient with the third grade reading guarantee. The state average was 50. And at this time, the next highest district would be at 58% in the county. Now, a lot of them are doing online testing, and we have asked our board each year to allow paper pencil testing for the third grade reading guarantee. I don't know if that has a little bit to do with the difference, but our data, there is a gap there, and I think that does contribute to part of it, but also the fact that our students have been in school, and they've been learning since last August on a normal schedule, since the beginning of October. I think our students certainly benefited from that. You can see a few areas that, in 6 of the 20 areas, Bloom Carroll earned the second highest scores in the county. So if we weren't in first so far, we're in second in 6 of those areas. Different ways to look at this data. There's quite a few ways. You can look at what has happened in each grade level in each state assessed area over a 3-year period, in the spring of 21, spring of 2019, and spring of 2018. Now, those are 3 different cohorts of students, but you can see in some of these areas, learning gaps do exist. Our scores, you can also track these cohorts, which I'll show you on the next spreadsheet, but you can see that in the areas that I highlighted, we stayed consistent. We were within the last 2 years. For example, ELA 2, which is high school sophomore English, this year was at 78%, in 2019 at 86%, and then in 2018 at 67%. Government, 91%, in 2019, 92% proficient, and in 2018, 85% proficient. So there's some areas where we show consistency. There's one area where we were at the highest level in the last 3 years with 8th grade ELA, 70%, and then 67% in 2019 and 66%. Again, 3 different groups of kids, so we're looking at different data there. If you look at how the cohorts track on the screen in front of you, you can see, for example, in 8th grade math, in spring of 21, 48% proficient, but if you go back to their last state assessment in math, and these assess different standards too. It's important to understand that you're not assessing the same standards all the time. But in 6th grade math, it's 74% in 2019, and those students in 2018 were in 5th grade math and scored at 69%. So you can kind of follow and see, here with third grade in 2018, 66%, fourth grade math in 2019 at 84%, and then 52%. So again, way above state averages. That's a good thing. We're doing very well. Our students are doing well. I attribute that to the board keeping our students in school and our students learning. But there's some, we had our school day shortened because of obvious reasons that we needed to provide that online, the online learners that instructional time, and teachers' time as well for the planning and grading. But overall, I think we should be very happy where we are with this preliminary state data. And I just wanted to share some of that preliminary data with you, and we continue to stay strong as a leader in student achievement and opportunities. Any questions about the state data before I move on to the next topic? All right, the other things that I obviously want to point out, the Ohio Academy of Sciences awarded the Harold C. Shaw Award to the Bloom Carroll High School State Science, to the Bloom Carroll High School students that participated in the State Science Day. There was 176 schools that participated, and we were only one of 14 schools that were able to receive this award. And it's really based on collective excellence and individual student research as a team award. So very proud of the high school science students that participated in that. With construction, received the final permanent certificate of occupancy signed off by the county last week. We are down to the playgrounds to finish. They just have to dress up the mulch containment system. They got to backfill around that a little bit, but all the mulch has been put in. The tennis courts, or the playgrounds are completely done. The one sticking point has been the tennis courts. I've been assured that they will be ready by August 1st. I have met with Summit Construction and the subcontractor responsible for that. And they are putting up the fence. They were putting up the fence today. They were touching up some areas on the court, adding some spectator asphalt for spectator viewing, but those will be done in the next few weeks, is what I'm being told. And I do have some pictures of where we are now. The board went through not too long ago. Some of these are fairly recent. This would be the first and second grade playground in the back of the building. You can see they have the backfill to put in along those areas. This is a 3 to 5 playground, kind of way back behind the building. It is more first and second grade here. Kindergarten playground here. This is a hard surface area for the students with some foursquare hopscotch, those types of things. Office area right here. Is ready to go. Mrs. P and Mr. Rozeski have been unpacking, getting set up. Teachers are that have signed up to receive their keys to get in early. We'll do that on Monday. They're coming in on the 19th, the 20th, the 21st to get their access cards, get their classroom keys, start unpacking. And we also built in a couple days at the beginning of the school year on the calendar for that. But it's looking really nice, and there's just a few things to touch up here and there, but the inside of the building, the outside of the building is in great shape. I'll just be completely honest, my biggest concern is the tennis courts, which they're saying will be done here in the next possible week or 2 weeks. So, any questions about any of that? Okay. There will be a ribbon cutting ceremony on August 11th from 4 to 6 p.m. We are planning to do that in front of the school, right at the main entrance. It'll be a quick ribbon cutting in terms of speeches and things like that, but we will also have guided tours. The student ambassadors from the high school will be present to help pass out fact sheets. The band or some band members will be present, play some music, and kind of spice that up a little bit, play the national anthem for us. To begin the ceremony. Cheerleaders will be there to do some Bulldog cheers and get the little ones if they show up kind of excited. And right now I'm planning on the big inflatable BA Bulldog. Mr. Sherman called me and suggested a few things that I followed up on. So that'll be there, and the Kona Ice Truck will be there to make it fun as well. And, so we'll try to make it a quick, ribbon cutting ceremony, and then let people, obviously see what they have provided for our, students and staff, and for generations of students at Bloom Carroll. The stadium lighting update, just so you know, 2 of the poles, no problems. We ran into some soil and water issues on a couple of the other poles on the visitor side on the south, and then on the home side, north end of the bleachers. Had to do some soil borings, get some engineers from CTL to look at that and make recommendations with the state inspector. Those casings for those 2 poles are being poured this week on Friday. The goal is still August 1st to have that project completed, have the lights up. But just wanted you to be aware of it. I kept you informed that we ran into some soil issues out there. I find it ironic where we run into soil issues and where we don't. But it's something that, kind of delayed us about a week and a half, and they're getting back on track with that project. Travis already covered the budget bill, House Bill 110, so I won't go into that. Something that was kind of neat, the Bloom Carroll Middle School library checkouts. Bloom Carroll Middle School, Meta is our ITC, and they control all of our student data and review all the student data, our student information system. There's a system called Overdrive that is used. It's a digital downloads, digital access to books, things like that online. And Bloom Carroll, in this ITC, there can be literally 100 school districts among a ton of Central Ohio schools that use Meta. And we had our school accounted for over 8,000 checkouts, which was far exceeding our next closest partner, the partner with Meta, which was a district with over 4,000 students. So we have 2,200 students, and our students far exceeded, just at Bloom Carroll Middle School, the most checkouts. They had over 8,000 books. These students read a total of 5,400 hours. It was around 133 minutes per student, but just something to show that, again, our kids being in school, having access to reading materials, our kids were reading much more than most kids in Central Ohio, and Mrs. Ford and the teaching staff at Bloom Carroll Middle School should be recognized for that. I thought that was a really cool thing. Finally, you probably caught wind about developments and things like that. There was a 196 unit apartment complex that was being proposed in Greenfield Township on Coonpath Road in an unincorporated area. I did attend a zoning board meeting, a Greenfield Township zoning board meeting, along with about 60 Greenfield Township residents. I did speak on behalf of the district. However, the trustees and the zoning board are responsible to the residents of Greenfield Township. I did explain how their decisions impact the school district. And ultimately, when a large group of students come into a district at one time, we do receive state aid, but not enough to fully fund their entire education on an average year. And we are below the state average in what we spend per pupil. And I explained that ultimately that it is the residents of the school district that have to make up the gap between the cost to educate the students and what we receive from the state and what we receive in property tax from a 196 unit apartment complex. So the good news was that the zoning board did recommend or voted to not approve the rezoning of the property from a business property, commercial property, to a residential, an R3 property, which was what the developer's request was, so that they could build the apartment complex. The trustees now have a decision to make, and they will do that on July 15th on Thursday evening. And I am going to be out of town, but we will have a representative there at the meeting. But Mr. Johnson did attend, a board member did attend as a resident of Greenfield Township. He did attend that meeting for the zoning board, and I did attend as well. So that's my update. Any questions?
Nope.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Let's move on to 9B. Number 1, approve the 2021-22 fees for the following classes. For the high school, number 1 through 18. B, from the middle school, these reduced fees. These are reduced fees from last year. Took the technology fee out because the students will have their own Chromebook, and they will be responsible for that device. So sixth grade, seventh grade and eighth grade as presented. And then nine BC, elementary school supply and technology fee, no increase in fees from last year. Kindergarten and second grade at $30, third and fourth grade at $40, and fifth grade at $50. The fifth grade does include a fee for BizTown, which is a part of their civics curriculum and social studies curriculum at the end of the year, and an experience they have operating the town and running the economy and the government and so on. So number two, approve the following cafeteria prices for the 21-22 school year, which is no increase in fees from last year. Breakfast for students $1.25, adults $1.50. Lunch, grades K to 8 at $2.90, and lunch for grades 9 through 12 and adults at $3. Just recall that the U.S. Department of Agriculture has extended free breakfast and lunch for the entire 21-22 school year to all students, regardless of qualifying status. So every student can continue to receive breakfast and lunch because of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Number three, approve an out-of-state trip for Mrs. Bachman and approximately 33 students to attend the National FFA Convention in Indianapolis, Indiana, October 27th through October 31st, 2021, to be chaperoned by Mrs. Bachman and 2 chaperones to be determined. And we have a voting on it.
Any questions from Mr. Vaughn?
Yes, sir.
I will make this motion. Can I get a second? Second. Motion made by Mr. Bratton, seconded by Mrs. Sherman. Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Bratton? Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, 9C, number 1, approve the employment of Victoria Butler as a middle school teacher to be assigned to 6th grade on an initial sequence 1-year limited contract at step 2 with a bachelor's degree, pending verification of education licensure and effective with the 21-22 school year, and that is pending the acceptance of agenda item 9F1, the resignation of Mrs. Engbert. Number 2, approve the employment of Carrie Zimpher as a 2.5-hour per day lunchroom monitor at the elementary school on a 1-year limited contract at step 3, pending receiving verification of experience and effective with the 21-22 school year, pending acceptance of agenda item 9F2, the resignation of Amy Horn. Number 3, approve the employment of Diana Bartholomew as a 2.5-hour per day lunchroom monitor at the high school on a 1-year limited contract at step 0 and effective with the 21-22 school year. This is a new position. It was on the high school wish list in the spring. One thing that we've talked about is that we have certified teachers covering study halls during 5th, 6th, and 7th period at the high school, which is our lunch periods, where it'd be nice to either get class sizes down or offer more electives with our certified licensed teachers, so they don't have to cover, so we don't have as many covering that. That's what that new position entails. Number 4, approve the employment of Janice Raver as a 3-hour per day, 4-day per week cook to be assigned to the Preschool and Learning Center, which is formerly the Bloom Carroll Intermediate School, on a 1-year limited contract at step 0 and effective with the 21-22 school year to fill a vacancy created by a retirement or resignation. We had 2 retirements and 1 resignation in our food service department. Number 5, approve the employment of April Romine as a 3.25-hour per day to be assigned to the elementary school on a 1-year limited contract at step 1 and effective with the 21-22 school year. Number 6, approve the employment of Denise Goff as a 3.25-hour per day cook to be assigned to the elementary school on a 1-year limited contract at step 0 and effective with the 21-22 school year. Number 7, approve the following request for salary column change pursuant to receipt and verification of official transcript effective August 19th, 2021 for Lauren Toterai from a master's degree to a master's degree plus 15 semester hours. Number 8, approve the following OTES evaluators for the 21-22 school year as presented, A through H. Number 9, approve the following elementary school staff as after-school detention monitors for the 21-22 school year. And this would be grades 3 to 5 as presented, A through E. Number 10, approve the following classified substitute for the 21-22 school year, pending receipt of background checks for Carrie Raver, a cook and lunchroom monitor. Number 11, approve the following athletic supplemental contracts for the 21-22 school year pending receipt of verifications and background checks. That would be Alyssa Bolin in middle school cheerleading for the fall season in Group D with no experience. And number 12, approve the following athletic department volunteers for the 21-22 school year pending timely receipt of background checks and verifications. That would be A, Scott Bartholomew for football. And from the addendum, 12B, Ashley Mallory, varsity cheerleading for the fall season, pending approval of agenda item 9C13 and acceptance of agenda item 9F4. And 9C13 from the addendum, approve the employment of Ashley Mallory as activities department secretary on a one-year limited contract at step 0, effective with the 21-22 school year. And,
Any questions for Mr. Arnold? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mrs. Sherman. Roll call.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
yes.
Mr. Bratton.
Yes.
Okay. 9D, contracts and agreements, approve a charter bus agreement with Columbus Coach or the Supreme Limousine to provide transportation for the National FFA Convention in Indianapolis, Indiana, October 27th through the 30th, 2021.
Any questions? I'll make this motion. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Bratton, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Roll call.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman.
Yes.
All right, nothing under 9E. 9F, personnel resignations and retirements, accept the resignation of Pam Ingber, middle school teacher, effective immediately. Accept the resignation of Amy Horn, primary school lunchroom monitor, effective immediately. Number 3, accept the resignation of Christine Evans, activities department secretary, effective July 31st, 2021. And 9F4 from the addendum, accept the resignation of Ashley Mallory as varsity cheerleading coach for the fall season, effective immediately.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Sherman, second by Mr. Abbott. Roll call.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bratton. Item 10, new business. Item number A, approve a resolution adopting a Calamity Day makeup plan for the 2021-2022 school year. Item B, approve an addendum to the employment contract with Sean Fawn. Item C, approve an addendum to the employment contract with Travis Bigham. And item D, approve the cancellation of July 28, 2021 Board of Education. Questions on this? I will make this motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Bratton, seconded by Mr. Abbott. Roll call.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman.
Yes.
Item 11, board reports and information. Board of Education liaison, facility management, Mr. Abbott.
Nothing further at this point. New building's ready to open. As Mr. Hahn said earlier, get the tennis courts finished up.
All that $30 million.
Yeah.
Tennis
Yeah,
courts.
things you gotta worry about.
Item number 2, personnel and labor management, Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Nothing since the last meeting. Everything seems to be good.
Mrs. Sherman, OSBA rep.
No report.
Policy, Mrs. Sherman, and Mr. Abbott.
No, we just went over it.
Next PDQ will be August.
Yep.
So we're meeting in mid-August.
Safety, health, and wellness, Mr. Abbott, Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Hopefully it's gonna be minimal this year.
Yeah.
Make no predictions.
Right.
Right, don't be right.
Item 6, finance, no updates there either. Item B, the upcoming PTO booster Board of Education meetings. We've got August 9th, 2021, our regular meeting here for the Board of Education, library at 6 p.m. August 11th, 2021, Blue Trail Elementary School ribbon cutting ceremony at 4 p.m. Item 12, adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Made by Mr. Sherman, second by Mr. Abbott. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes. 7:02.